Hello, everyone. This week's video is all about grades in Spanish class. So, I'm going to share with you some of my philosophies and my expectations surrounding grades and help you make some sense out of what you see in Power School in case you have questions. So, what I'd like you to understand first and foremost is that I put students' learning at the center of my grading policies. They're here to learn, and learning and improving will always be reflected in their grades to the best of my ability. I'm oddly invested in the topic of grading and could probably record an hour talking about it. So I've created a list of 5 things that are most important for you to know about grading in Spanish class. All right. Number 1, 90% is the sweet spot. My goal would be for all of my students to have grades that fall somewhere between an 85 and a 95. I teach to 90%. So if a student receives a 90% on a test, for example, that means that they're meeting expectations of the class that they're in. Anything higher than a 90 means they're starting to work on skills that will be expected of them the next year. And anything lower than that means that there's skills from this year that they're still working on. Number 2, homework is called learning activities in Power School, and it's graded on completion and timeliness. So there are certain learning activities that I expect my students to participate in depending on what level of Spanish they have. So that could include show and tell, book reports, goal activities, and whatever specific activities I've chosen to prepare them for whatever test they have coming up. So the grade you see in Power School for these things is based on completion. If they did the work and they turned everything in on time, it will show 100%. If they missed a couple of deadlines, but they still did everything, even though some of it came in late, you're going to see either a 90 or a 95. Anything under a 90 implies that they did not complete the homework assignment. So that's something easy that you can look for as parents if you choose to monitor Power School. A 90 or higher on a learning activity assignment means they're doing all of their homework. Less than that means that they're not. Number 3, tests are weighted at 80% of their quarter grade. It's extremely important to me that my students' grades are linked to what they're able to do with their Spanish. How well can they speak? How well can they write? How well can they read? So in each unit, we have 3 tests. One is a conversation test. A second is either a reading test or a listening test. And then the third is either a writing test or a speaking test. So there's also one more writing test that gets put in every quarter, and that's a formal book report. Right? So all of this is closely related to number 4, which there is no extra credit in Spanish class. Again, I want to make sure that my students' grades mean something. So when a student earns a 90% for a quarter grade, that's because they're using their Spanish at the level I expect them to, not because they did an extra project to make up for the fact that they didn't learn how to do what was expected of them. However, fear not, because number 5, nearly everything is redoable. As I said in the beginning, it's my goal to put my students' learning at the center of my teaching and at the heart of their grades. So when a student asks me, how can I get my grade up? I ask them, well, what skill is it that you need to improve? Let's work on it. But to lay it out really clearly, I will say this. I accept late homework. I allow students to retake vocabulary quizzes. And I will allow them a second try on a test as long as all the homework that led up to that test has been completed and that they have met with me to talk about what went well and what not so well on their original attempt. Okay, that's my 5. If you're left with any questions about grading in Spanish class or what your students' grades mean, please let me know.